I love you, Bug.
I love you too.
The moment that comes for everyone. Has come for Chris Nielsen.
You've died, Chris.
If heaven were a place of beauty...
Whoa! Boy, I screwed up. I'm in dog heaven.
And wonder.
Nice place you got here.
No. Nice place you got here. We all paint our own surroundings. You're the first guy I know to use real paint.
Where you felt no fear.
I'm gonna drown.
You can't. You're already dead.
Oh,
And knew only joy.
I can fly.
It's your world! Oh. Woo!
Could you forget the past?
I need Annie.
That'll change in time.
Time does not exist here. And wherever it went, it's not gonna make me need Annie any less.
Or would you journey beyond heaven and hell?
You never see her.
I'm her soulmate. I can find her.
To get it back.
All you're good for is your wife loves you.
You just kept me there.
What dreams may come.
And welcome back to the Movie Hero Network. This is Wheel of Movies, episode number 32, and we are talking What Dreams May Come, 1998, starring Robin Williams. And as always, I'm joined with me, my co-host, Richie Goodacre. How's it going, Richie?
Yeah, doing all right. Yeah, see you wearing a Lonely Marks t-shirt. I didn't realize we
Well, shout out to Rhonda, my girlfriend, who made me a Lonely Marks shirt for Christmas. So there you go. And it says... It's on the back.
That's awesome.
It's got my name on the back, so I don't forget who I am.
Yeah, it's important at older age as well. So yeah, yeah, happy to be here. Always happy to go through in depth some movies here. There's a lot to talk about. I'll say that. Not giving too much away.
Yeah, no, not either one of our favorites, but again, as long as there's things to talk about, and there's certainly things to talk about this movie for sure. And yeah, I think we'll get into it, but I think it was a long time rewatch for both of us because I haven't seen this movie in like at least 20 years, at least. It's been a minute, but we'll get into all the details in just a minute. As I said, we're talking What Dreams May Come, released on October 2nd, 1998. I always thought this was like a Christmas movie, but I guess I was mistaken there. But maybe it would have, we'll talk about maybe it would have done better at the holiday season or something. But October 2nd, 1998, directed by New Zealand native Vincent Ward. Richie, he's kind of a Australian New Zealand director. This is his only American production, from what I can tell from his Wikipedia, a fully American movie, and I'll talk about why in a minute. I don't know if you've heard of either of his kind of two more famous movies he did before this that were straight New Zealand productions that won, got awards consideration and whatnot. There's the movie called The Navigator, A Medieval Odyssey. Have you ever heard of that one?
Can't say I have.
Okay, it won like Best Picture in New Zealand or something. So and again, sort of co-Australia New Zealand awards and whatnot. So he got some acclaim for that, at least at the time. And then a follow-up movie called Map of the Human Heart. I don't know if you heard that one either.
Vaguely heard of that one.
Yeah, so I mean, a few notable actors in both of those, but I hadn't heard of these movies in particular. But when I was digging in his Wikipedia, that was kind of some of his claim to fame. He also kind of did sort of some writing treatments of Alien 3. That's also like all over his Wikipedia. So that's an odd one that's like mixed in with David Fincher. So there you go. But yeah, he's a fairly unknown guy, at least over in the States with us. Other than this movie, primarily because $90 million budget, so which is a lot for 1998. Pretty damn big budget. It's even pretty big budget for now. But a box office worldwide of only $75 million. So it was not profitable, and so that's probably why he headed back to New Zealand. Most likely, this movie did not perform terribly well. But I'll say this, and we'll get into it. You can see the money on screen, so I can see where they spent the money. At least, I'll at least say that the money's there. But was it worth it? We'll talk about it. we'll see. So yeah, just a few other quick trivia facts and bits about the movie. One of the main set pieces, is that sort of gateway to hell in the movie, and that was a real aircraft carrier hull, that they converted into this set from the USS Oriskany, that was kind of decommissioned and decrepit, and they converted the whole hull into like a practical set. So I always thought that was pretty cool. They actually do practical thing. Again, I appreciate practical sets and practical effects.
Yeah,
so,
I feel like as we'll go on the visuals, we won't be negative on that. The visuals, they were.
It's probably the strongest aspect of the movie. I'll put it out there, and probably the reason why people still maybe remember, talk about this thing. This is an interesting thing. I don't know if you recall, Richie. There was a big story back in 2008 where there was a fire in the Universal backlot in LA. There was a backlot fire that this guy was welding and like left a welding torch on or something, and it caused a big backlot fire. And it mostly burned a lot of original music prints and like audio tapes and things like that, mostly music, but all the American prints of this movie were burned in that fire as well. Yeah, it wasn't a whole lot of movies, but this was one that was included in that. But luckily, there was a print in Europe, at one of their offices in Europe that they had. So, the original negative was saved in that way. But there's an article, New York Times article I did in 2019 called "The Day the Music Burned," and it goes into how Universal has kind of covered up how much music they actually lost in that backlot fire, and these original tapes and whatnot, master tapes and stuff. So, but they lost a few movie prints as well. But yeah, so there was an original Ennio Morricone score that was recorded for this movie and just never used. They scrapped it and just went to someone else, which would have been odd.
Why would you not use it in one of the best composers of all time? I don't understand.
I don't know. I guess
I think he'd work well in this film as well. Anyway.
It's not the first time that's happened where Ennio has submitted something for a movie and it's just been flat out either rejected or just left on the cutting room floor. So I don't know, but the actual score of the movie is done by Michael Kamen, who's another very accomplished composer. But so I don't know what it sounds like. If it would have worked, don't know. And apparently Ennio was not given. He was just told we're going a different direction. That's all he was told. So there you go. So it's out there somewhere. 2 Oscar nominations for the movie, despite what you may think of it. Mostly for the stuff we're talking about. 2 Oscar nominations for art direction and special effects. It won for special effects. So this is an Oscar-winning film. Won for special effects. Just throwing it out there. Let's see if you agree. I tend to think a different movie should have won. We'll talk about it. This is when they were only doing 3. So it was What Dreams May Come, Mighty Joe Young, if you remember the Bill Paxton movie from 98, and Armageddon, which I kind of feel should have won, actually. I think Armageddon's a pretty damn good special effects extravaganza. And a lot of it really holds up, especially the space stuff. I think it's really, really good.
This is the first time I'm also learning that technically Mighty Joe Young is an Oscar-nominated film.
Oscar-nominated film, yeah, for special effects.
I mean, it's a decent movie, but things like I tend to agree there. I think it probably should have won, but I definitely appreciate like the nomination for Dreams May Come in this category if you're going to nominate for anything. you would nominate for.
Well, and yeah, art design or production design, I could see that. Like, there's some
Yeah.
production design going on here for sure. So it lost to Shakespeare in Love, by the way, that year. It was the year of Shakespeare in Love and Saving Private Ryan. So
Yeah.
there you go. Kind of dominating everything. This is based on a novel by Richard Matheson, who was not happy with this movie because they changed a whole lot from the novel. It basically is almost a completely different story with just a few elements, as Hollywood is one to do. He was not terribly happy with the outcome. But this movie almost got made in 1984 with Wolfgang Petersen at the helm. It came very close to being made then. So, take that for what you will. And then the only other thing I'll mention is Spike Lee listed this in one of his movies where he was critical of the magical Negro trope of movies with this movie, along with The Family Man, The Legend of Bagger Vance, and The Green Mile. That all kind of came out roughly around the same time period. So he was critical of this movie for that, which you can kind of see in this movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. So, but we can talk about that when we get there. But yeah, we'll get into it a little bit. And I always kind of ask about your history with the movie. Richard, do you remember the first time you saw it, or how you kind of came to it originally?
So when my dad owned a video store, we would get because it was a smallish video store, you couldn't they couldn't really afford to sort of get everything that came that was released. So usually if it came to theaters, you'd get it, but he would probably, if he had time, he'd sit down and watch them to determine how many copies of said film he'd get. And one of those films was What Dreams May Come. So we had that in our collection for a while. But yeah, I'm not sure how many copies he ended up getting. I think it was 3 or something. I would usually, even as a kid, I'd probably help him with that. I'm I think the max was copies you could get of me was 6. So I'd be because he wasn't wouldn't say he was well versed in movies necessarily. So I'd be I'll be not only was that at the movies it was an Oscar contender, you got to get 6. That man, that's a blockbuster, you got to get 6. But then sometimes those direct DVD ones or ones that didn't work that well, I'm you don't need that one. So there's trauma films sometimes come out on DVD video.
Well, and to be fair, over here, with the Blockbuster video chain, which I'm sure you're familiar with, even if I don't know if you guys had them in Australia.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. They used to do this thing, and I'm sure they did there, where at one point later they would do guaranteed on opening weekend or whatever to be available, to rent at one point. So they would guarantee that they had copies of it if it was some big movie from the previous year or whatever, finally coming out on video or DVD and whatnot. I always wondered what happened when it wasn't, if it got completely sold out. Would they just give you a rain check voucher for a free one or something?
Yeah, because you can only guarantee so much. It's either guarantee, and then it's all of a sudden there's 40, 50 people at your door.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel let's say I'm just throwing, for instance, Titanic, right? That was a big movie. Right?
That's exactly the same movie I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of one of the big movies in the 90s or whatever. Titanic. I'm sure when it comes out, very popular. People want to check it out, revisit it. Yeah, how do you guarantee that? Even if you have, let's say, 100, 200 copies at a Blockbuster, you can't guarantee that. So do you just give a rain check? I don't know.
you get added to it. You get added to the what was it when you're at a library on a hold. You get pushed up the list.
Yeah. So I guess that whatnot. I'm pretty sure, 90% sure I saw this in the theater. I know I was pretty high on Robin Williams at the time because I was a big fan of Hook, and Aladdin, obviously, and I didn't see Good Will Hunting in theaters. I was rated R at the time. I was a little too young, but I know Patch Adams and this were not. So I know I'm pretty sure I saw both of these in theaters with my parents and whatnot. I think I rewatched it sometime, in the early 2000s in my Blockbuster days, just renting a bunch of stuff. I'm sure I had it in the pile somewhere and rewatched it. But yeah, I don't think I'd seen this movie all the way through. I mean, I remember the beats of this movie, the major set pieces and kind of the beats, the basic story and whatnot. But I hadn't sat down and watched it start to finish in probably 20 years. Easy.
So I sort of similar story because I think I watched I think I was on TV a few years ago and I was at my friend's place. So I wasn't really. I was already tired and I sort of wasn't really paying attention to it. So I don't really count that. Because it's it was on, but I wasn't really watching it. So my only watch really is when it was about to come out on home video and DVD and got the preview copy. So that was about it.
Yeah. But yeah, let's get into it. So we've got this basic premise of Robin Williams playing Chris. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. Annabelle, is it Sciorra or Sciorra?
I was struggling with this as well.
Yeah, Sciorra or Sciorra. I'm not sure. I apologize for butchering the name. Who, by the way, is mostly a TV actress. She did a lot of movies kind of in the early 90s. But the last 20, 25 years, she's been a pretty prominent, just kind of, just one of those working actresses, just popping up on which TV shows. But she's on Tulsa King right now. So if you want to see her, she's on Tulsa King.
Remember like someone like Marissa Tomei or like the Cardellini kind of.
Yeah, she's got a little bit of that vibe. She's got the who's the woman who's in Schindler's List and Matilda, who played like Miss Honey and Matilda. She reminds me.
The name escapes me, but I know you're talking about.
Yeah, she kind of looks like her as well. And Bette Davids. She looks a lot like Bette Davids. She gives me those vibes. So yeah, I kind of mistook her for that initially. But she's attractive. She's very good looking. And Robin Williams kind of sees her. And there's like this sort of prologue thing in Switzerland, where they kind of stumble across each other.
It's very convenient. Like, hey, I'm on a boat. You're on a
and
boat.
We're both in Switzerland, and we're both American. We're not Swiss.
So, there's no one else around.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like the most convenient of meet cutes. Yeah, and the most kind of improbable situations, and on this giant like lake or whatever it is, huge thing. But yeah, so they meet. I guess they both have an affinity for like art and whatnot. So they connect on what we don't get much about their stuff at the beginning of the movie. We kind of get more in flashbacks.
Well, they end up they meet, then they reconvene later in Switzerland, and like she's like, I guess like they had a picnic or something. They're like, oh yeah, how did you know where to find me? She's like, I didn't. I'm like, how did you must have added like I don't it's very vague. Like, why are they in Switzerland? What brought them here? Why? And like, did she come with anybody else? Why are they both alone?
I don't know. Yeah, the movie doesn't take much time because literally like they meet and then we like basically fast forward and they're married and now they have kids and we just kind of jump ahead, 10 years or whatever it is, 15 years. I'm not exactly sure. Like it's a little vague kind of in the actual details. But yeah, they've got kids. He's a pediatrician. She's an artist. And yeah, they've got these kids. And yeah, within 10 minutes of the movie, I forgot about this, man, these kids are dead as a doornail from a car crash. And I was like, wow. Okay. I didn't get to know these kids at all. We get like one scene of them getting in the car and they're dead.
Not only do we get to know them, I swear that because of the way, and it's unfortunate because of one way that it looks. I thought they were both boys. I thought they were both boys. I forgot. I didn't realize. It took me a while to realize. Oh wait, one of them a girl.
Yeah, I think it's kind of tomboyish with the girl.
It's tomboyish, and I just sort of I was like, but then he talks about having a daughter. I'm like, oh wow, oh wait, that's a girl because it's like they look like they just look like kind of like similar boys. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense then. But yeah, you don't get it's like you could have spent more time kind of develop, So it's like, hey, these people, they're basically they're getting rid of school. They go in the car, dead.
They're with the nanny or something. Like the nanny's like driving them to school instead of like the mom because the mom has regrets. Annie has regrets about her not driving them herself, like thinking that she could have avoided the accident somehow. If she was driving, she makes mention of that later.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay. But I don't know. And so you learn about the kind of through flashbacks, but I don't know, flashbacks can work in the right circumstance, but sometimes flashbacks can annoy me.
I would have liked to have at least had a few scenes of the family dynamic, and their interactions with each other as a family, other than just like flashes and pictures and, a few very brief moments. I feel like, it's 10 minutes in this movie. We don't get to know them at all. And all of a sudden we have Chris and Annie bawling at a funeral, for the two kids. Obviously that's devastating. I'm not saying it's not in context of the movie, but I don't know why I'm supposed to be connected with that, other than if I had children, I guess. But it's hard to be automatically sympathetic when I don't know these characters very well.
Well, actually, Hook is a good example because you kind of like when you're talking about Hook before, because I feel like you at least know the dynamic of like, hey, he's very frustrated with trying to balance like fatherhood and then work, and they kind of get under his skin. So you get a sense of what family life is like before they get kidnapped, and before they disappear for a while. But you don't get you barely get any of this before they pass away.
No, and we don't even get much after that. We get like a little bit of grieving for like a few minutes, and then all 5-10 minutes later, Robin Williams is like in a tunnel, driving, and there's an accident, and he's a doctor, so naturally, being a good guy and a good doctor, he goes to assist, and he gets, for his troubles, karma of the universe, he gets taken out by a flying car, which I forgot about the flying car bit. I thought he just got like hit by a car, somebody else speeding, but oh my god, he gets flattened pancaked by a car that like takes a jumper, and like spins in the air and just flattens him, and it goes black.
Yeah, the start of this film, I'm like, is this like I'm expecting Tony Todd to show up. Is this like Final Destination? Did someone do something?
Yeah, like who did they piss off? And again, I'm going to keep it within the context of the movie, but man, if you believe in God, this guy's an asshole in this movie. like, oh my God, is he just taking out this family left and right to where, like, I don't blame Annie for wanting to shoot herself and being depressed. You know what I mean? Like, holy cow! Within like a couple of years, because I think they say it's like 4 years later, like since the kid died. I mean, they jump to it very, very fast. I mean, the only reason you know that is because she has like a different haircut. Like they do the old movie trope of like it's been years, so this person has a different hairstyle. That's how we can be.
Yeah, we don't have the anti-aging technology isn't up to snuff yet.
And no, I mean she looks the same. She just has this like kind of shortened like bobby haircut or something, like she's cut her hair a little bit. That's about all we got.
But it's not only that. Like they didn't really say how long it was between the car accident and this happening. But before the car accident, she has to have that tough conversation with was it the daughter or son, where it's like, oh, they're gonna put the dog down. I'm like, Jesus.
Oh yeah, no. Oh God, I forgot to even mention that. Yeah, nobody survives in this damn family. Even the dog dies. I was like, bro. I was like, we can't even let the dog live. Like Jesus, and don't get me wrong. And we both had the same thing, Richie. We both had dogs, and I had one that passed away last year. And I was like, it's tough as well. That's no, that's not a vacation. Trying to go through that or deciding to either put your dog down or your dog died naturally. Like that sucks too. So yeah, just to pile on, not only do you lose your kids, but you lose kind of your other kid with this dog, essentially, because that's how I always treated my dog. It was like a kid. But yeah, I forgot about that. It's like depression porn. It's just beating me over the head with this. It's just like, man, they just can't catch a break, Richie.
You know what? This is a weird, but it does remind me of this, which is weird. Like this is a better movie than that, but it does. As you go on, you'll know. It reminds me of this movie. The Shack with Sam Worthington.
Oh God, you mean the Secret Christian movie? Yeah.
It's
that they didn't advertise when it was. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's just like let's put our characters just through the ringer and just be down the entire time. And we're like 20 minutes into this movie and everybody's dead except for Annie, and I'm just like, oh my God, like what is this? Like that's just I mean, I guess there's a time and place for movies that are depressing, but my God.
Especially at this time when you think you're expecting, I don't know how you would have marketed this film, because like Robin Williams is not like known as like sort of he was like, and then they try to, we'll get to it, they try to enact whimsy into it, but he's known sort of being being in sort of upbeat movies. This is before like 1 Hour Photo and Insomnia and stuff. He was sort of more, hey, it was like the kind of the favorite quirky dad kind of vibe, charismatic guy, and he was in his Mrs. Doubtfire. He was in like all these sort of movies. So how do you market this film? I don't even know like who's this movie for. So
I mean, it's one of those weird movies where, you know, and this is a weird thing in Hollywood where the actor or actress wins an Oscar and has these very strange movies that come out right afterwards. Because literally, you know, Good Will Hunting's the year before he wins an Oscar, and rightfully so. He's amazing in that movie. He's incredible. And you know, and so I guess maybe, and it's not like he had not done drama before. I mean, he had like Awakenings and The Fisher King and stuff. So he had Good Morning. I mean, he had dabbled in it, so it's not like unusual. But yeah, I feel like he was on more of a comedy kick around this time. But even the same year, like I said, Patch Adams has its dramatic moments near the end and whatnot, but there's still a lot of like upbeat scenes of him doing the comedic stuff, you know, as the doctor. So it's kind of that blend, but there's like no comedy in this movie at all, like at all. Yeah. Because even Good Will Hunting has the one scene where he talks about his wife farting in her sleep or whatever that makes Matt Damon, that made him like laugh for real on set, and they just kept it all in the movie, and it's very funny. And like he's still like making jokes like here and there, and he's still got that kind of upbeat thing. He is just in full on depression mode in this movie, just frowny face, you know, on the verge of crying Robin Williams in this movie, and it's kind of tough to watch.
And it's tough to watch knowing too, like it's, you know, how he passed away as well. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of really it's tough. It's like tough to watch. Like the only times he like like felt enjoy was when he was with his, you know, what do you think about being with his wife, or you know the big time he was with his dog. It's interesting. It's an interesting movie.
And we're gonna really get into it now because he gets taken out in the tunnel in the car wreck. You know, they have this thing where he's kind of in you know, sort of a in between limbo thing where he's, you know, where he's like with the wife and he's at the funeral, so he's in this in between state where you know he's almost in a ghostly state, you know, if you will, and so he's at his own funeral. He's kind of trying to talk to Annie and trying to comfort her, and she's kind of there, but not there. And and he starts to meet Cuba Gooding Jr. We don't get full Cuba Gooding Jr. In the movie until we get to the kind of heaven sequence. It's like this weird kind of blurry, you know, almost like a hologram type thing that's sort of following him around, and it's this like voice in his head, kind of trying to explain what's going on. But yeah, these scenes again are a little odd. You know, in its introduction, he doesn't know he's dead. It's got that like very Sixth Sense thing of like, you know, or we'll move on when you're ready, and whatnot. So he's trying to kind of hang on. He doesn't want to leave her. There's that weird scene where he's trying to talk to her and make her do the little writing and whatnot. But yeah, I'm just talking about Richie. The stuff where he's like kind of a ghost for a little while before he goes to heaven. With Cuba, like explaining him like what's going on, like we'll move on when you're ready, sort of thing.
They're trying to talk to it. Yeah, they're going. Yeah, what is it? I miss you, Chris, or I love you, Chris, or whatever.
Trying to write the thing on the paper, and she like crumples it up and like gets all mad and like throws it away.
It's that was weird. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that scene, to be honest. It's like one of those things where I don't know. We'll get to it. Cuba Gooding Jr. was annoyed me in this movie.
So. He was very turned up to 11 in this movie, and like and again, this is not long after his Oscar win either in '96, you know, for Jerry Maguire. So he's getting these roles, but I feel like he never quite followed up on it, like you know.
He didn't really recover. He had I know he had was it around the time he had Men of Honor, which was, you know, received all right. But
because he's in As Good as It Gets, which is fine, but it's kind of a small role. He's got this, but then we go into like Chill Factor and Men of Honor and Pearl Harbor and, you know, Rat Race. He's funny in Rat Race. But then we really get into like Snow Dogs and Boat Trip and The Fighting Temptations, and it's like, oh my god, like what happened? You know, like we're like what Radio, which I don't like. You know, just it's I don't know what happened, and I know he's still working. I mean, he's always kind of popping up in random things.
Well,
but
we're at a point now in 2025 that his son's more famous than he is. Mason Gooding, who's in Scream. So
Well, and his younger brother Omar Gooding, if you remember, was like a Nickelodeon like Disney star for a while. And I remember he was in like Baby Boy, he was in Smart Guy, things like that. Yeah, that's his brother. But yeah, so yeah, it's a little odd, that Mason Gooding's kind of coming up and and some stuff. But yeah, anyways, we'll kind of get to it because he finally decides to let go after she has that scene where she kind of screams, and he decides to just go ahead and leave her alone. So yeah, we get to him and Cuba in heaven, and his, I guess, or at least this portion of heaven or his personal one is this like painting world, this like paint world, something where everything's like kind of half paint, and the ground and the sky and the birds and the trees and everything is like this weird painting. I don't know. What do you think of this whole aesthetic?
Yeah, I guess because you did it wouldn't bother you, but like luckily you you can't feel things or smell things. So I reckon the paint fumes would get to me after a while. I think especially.
Although, doesn't it seem like this would be more Annie's heaven if she was there with the painting?
Yeah, she's the artist.
She's the artist. He's not the artist. So like, why is this?
We didn't really establish what like his hobbies are necessarily. He's like a doctor. Like, would he have like fucking like doctor things? I don't know.
I don't know. Or just his thing is, and I totally understand this. He's like playing around with the world a little bit, and he's initially kind of enraptured by it, as you would be. You'd wonder like what it's all about, kind of what's going on. Cuba's kind of laying out the rules or something. Like there's rules to heaven, which is weird. Again, I'm going to talk mostly about. I'm not a religious guy, so like I'm not going to get too much into it. I'm just going to talk about in the context of this movie, okay? Like what the movie presents, right? Like. This would get fucking boring if you ask me. Like, is this all it is? Like, it just you running around this world or like hanging out, and there's weird rules of. No, go ahead.
No one else besides like people. I mean, we'll get the people you know, but you don't know. You don't know that you know them until after
people that you like met once. Like they say that him and Cuba like knew each other in a past life or something. Like I don't really understand the relationship. It's something to where they had some kind of connection, but not really a big one. Because he's like, you remember me from like 20 years ago? And he's like, vaguely. Okay, all right. I guess you're my guide. But yeah, I mean they're running around. He's like trying to fly, doing all this, whatever. He builds like a house, like their house out of paint and all this stuff. But then he naturally, and this to me is where I start to have the weird issues of this movie. He naturally is like, okay. All right, I'm in heaven, right? Right, Cuba Gooding Jr. My kids should be up here, right? Like, can I see my children? And he's like, no. And I was like, what? What do you mean no? And even Robin Williams in the movie is like, what do you mean no? I can't see my kids. Like, what are you talking about? There's no time existence. Like, why can't I go see my kids? And he's just like, you'll see them when you're ready. And I'm like, what a dick.
Well, yeah, that's the issue. Is like he, I mean, like we sort of, there's reveals later, but like it's like. And I know because movie's got a movie, but like he's spoken code a lot. And you're like, man, you'd fucking get on my nerves speaking in code a lot. Like,
like okay, it's like, what are you waiting for? If we're gonna be here for eternity, like, should you just lay it all out? Like, what are we doing here? Like, you're gonna be mysterious and weird and talking about vague rules and how things work. And I'm legitimately with Chris in this, where I'm just like, what do you mean I can't see my kids? Like, my kids have been dead for 4 years. Like, can I see my damn kids if they're here? Can I at least like give them a hug, please? That would really make me happy right now. And then, because to me, if you were in heaven and you knew that, and we'll get to this part of it, and like, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. If you knew your spouse who you loved, who was your soulmate, was in hell, right? Or your kids were in heaven, but you couldn't see them. How could you have like a content afterlife, Richie? Like knowing that, being conscious of that, to me, that's a little odd.
Yeah, like cool. You can hang out with the dog and stuff, but like I feel like that. I also feel like it's weird too, because I got the impression. I mean, obviously it was a family dog or whatever, but I also got the impression maybe the dog was more like closer with the daughter or whatever. So I don't know. That was weird it's like the dog can't be with. I don't know. So
or even with Annie, because she's the one who's like cradling the dog when she's about to like put him down or something, kind of, and
Yeah.
Robin was just kind of standing there. Like, yeah, again, we don't know the dynamics of the dog, like, or again, some of these family dynamics I don't understand.
Does can the dog see the kids or whatever? Like it doesn't seem.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't. It seems like a very a more lonelier existence had he just lived the car accident. At least he's got like, if he lived the car accident, he's probably got like, other family, aunts and uncles and stuff like that. He could go, but now he just, but in the afterlife, it's just all right, cool. I get to, I don't know. Oh, I'll try. I don't know. I'll just like,
I'll try to be happy, I guess. Yeah, I don't. So yeah, he rightfully kind of has this like freak out of like, and is like, why can't I see my kids? That doesn't make any sense. So he tries to is like, okay, well, whatever, I guess. And then it's like a few scenes later, Cuba breaks him the news that Annie has committed suicide, I believe by poison. She's got like a weird bowl of something that she's eating, and I think she eats some kind of poison, with something. So I think she poisons herself, and so Cuba's like, hey, your wife is dead, and he's like, oh, so her suffering's over. So is she here? Can I go see her now? I'm like, please, I miss her like terribly. And he's like, well, I got some bad news for you, bro. And it's like, and by the way, this is something the Catholic Church just invented in the 1800s, by the way, like Catholic canon of like, if you kill yourself, you go to hell. That's like something they just made up in the 1800s. But
then he goes like, this is a bit annoying because he goes like, no, you can't. You can actually. Well, when can I see her? You can never see her like forever. It's like, but what? Why is it? Why is there judgment? It's like, no, there's no judgment. That's how the rules work. I'm like, that's judgment.
That's judgment. That's judgment. What do you mean that's how the rules work? Yeah, like so you have this Annie character who has suffered the deaths of her 2 kids, the death of her dog, the death of her husband, and presumably, I think we're made to believe still lived for 2 or 3 years without that, and was a grieving widower who is completely and utterly depressed. Like she has nothing, like basically nothing to live for. So she decides she basically wants. I mean, I think she killed herself because she wants to go. Thinks she's going to go see her family or something, right? Like she's just like, I'm done. I can't do this. So she's been dunked on by this world essentially for all of this, and because she takes her own life, the rules dictate that you go to hell. So that seems mildly unfair, I would say. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
And yes, it's absolutely judgment if that's the rules. Yes, you are judging people based on your rules. It's your rules, so you're judging that. But okay.
And then it's like, is it this? Not long after that, like it's like, I'm skipping a little bit. Maybe they're like, okay, well, we're gonna go. I'm gonna go try to go to hell. They go on a boat to try to go to hell, and then just out of nowhere. I mean, sorry if I'm jumping ahead too much, but they're like, out of nowhere, Cuba Gooding Jr. is like, oh, by the way, he runs into, but when does he? Okay, you take the reins here. Like I know he.
You talking about when he like leaves the movie essentially for a little while, like before they go
so he after that, like he decides he wants to go to hell anyway, but even against, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s advisement, he he wants to go to sort of like, track her down, even though like he said, no one ever, does that successfully. And then, when does he meet Max von Sydow? That's one.
It's not long after that because he talks to the girl from Star Trek Next Generation for a little while, sees like all the people flying around and a little bit more of him, whatever. But yeah, he has this heart to heart of just like, I can't and understand him. So he's like, I can't like do this eternity thing without my wife. Like, understandably so. He's just like, that bugs me. And so he's like, is there a way I can at least see her or say goodbye or something? And yeah, that's when Cuba's just like you shouldn't do that. Like, no, like, I mean, there's a way, but like, no. And then he's just like, well, I want to, can I try? And yeah, so that's when they go find, Max von Sydow, who's like this tracker is what they call him, who I guess can traverse between the two, afterlives. So, and he kind of also sort of advises against it, mainly just because he says, nobody's ever successfully like brought somebody from, hell to heaven or whatever, or most people who do it get lost, on the journey and whatnot. So, and here's the thing, I will say this is probably the most interesting part of the movie for me, this middle part where they are doing this journey, because at least we get some like cool scenery changes. Again, I think this is where the special effects kind of really start to hit. There's some really good practical stuff in here. So I'm trying to be positive like where I can, you know what I mean? Like, and I think Max von Sydow's all right, as this like tracker guy.
Just give me aware too where randomly Werner Herzog shows.
No, I mean we'll get to it. He's in the face floor or whatever you want to call it. They kind of traverse this like sort of ocean. And again, I also have a thing of like, what determines where you end up in hell? And what I mean by that is there are people that are like in this ocean trying to grab this boat. There are like guards of this like gateway, with like flaming swords and shit and like bows and arrows, and it's like looks like Mad Max or something.
Did they drown somebody when they were alive or something?
I don't know who goes where, and then there's these people, like you said, in this like field of faces, like all like stuck, in one spot, with just their head, but it looks like when in Jumanji when he gets stuck in the floor, with the earthquake thing. It's like faces like sticking out of the floor. It reminded me of that actually. And then Annie is like just in her own house, just by herself, with like dementia, so what determines what? They never really make that clear, like who goes where and becomes what. I don't know. It's very odd.
She's like in a dilapidated house. You're like, well, why? I don't know. Yeah, they just you just like wake up in the afterlife and you're there. I don't know. Like
in the book, I think I read in the book, Richie, in the book, because she committed suicide, she will eventually go to heaven, but she has to do this like 24-year purgatory in that little house thing or something, in like a limbo state, which I think makes a little more sense. Like, it would make a little more sense if like that's sort of your mid punishment before you go there, sort of thing.
I can reconcile that, but like, and that's whatever. That's all right, but like to just for the movie to be like, oh no, she's got to stay there. Like, she died at her own hand. That's evil. She's got to stay there. No, I go.
I reject that entirely. Again, I'm trying to be positive. The actual gateway to have the aircracker thing here I talked about with all the fire and everybody and all the there's hundreds of extras. Like, it's pretty cool. Like, that stuff is all right. I appreciate a good practical set with a lot of great extras and makeup and stuff. Cool. Like, I'm cool with all that. I like that. That field of faces or whatever, like that's a cool visual that I've never forgotten. Like, that's an interesting thing that I always remembered from this movie, him like trying to step over the faces without stepping on anybody directly. That's where we get the weird Werner Herzog character.
Herzog on the faces.
He's one of the weird faces. They have like a brief little like 10-second conversation and then he moves on. He like kind of falls in this sort of abyss and lands in this water, and then there's this like it looks like something from Alien, like the little like passageway to the house, it's like it looks like a spaceship, like it's kind of crazy. The thing that kind of leads to it. Max von Sydow kind of warns him. He's like, all right, you can try this, and like and it reminded me a lot of Inception actually, because it's like you can try this, but the longer you talk to her, the more you're gonna lose like your mind. Like, if you stay there too long, you're gonna get lost and you're gonna forget who are. You're like, I don't mind that it's a concept. I thought that was kind of a decent concept of like, you can't stay down here too long or you'll get stuck, which makes sense, and probably he has seen that happen to other people.
See, I liked him because his character was a bit more like, at least like when he
wasn't talking in riddles.
At least when he said, you can't do this, he would explain why. Whereas like, many Cuba Gooding Jr. is just very vague about things.
Yeah.
To the point where it's just like,
No,
I mean,
Max von Sydow was literally like, bro, you got like 5 minutes or you're gonna lose your mind. Like he's very straightforward. He's like, you got if you can't get to her in 5 minutes, you need to like come back out or you're gonna get lost. Like he's very straightforward. Like, here's the rule for this situation. Like, follow this rule or this will happen. Okay, cool. Like I got you. Like and you know, and that's kind of how it plays out. Because yeah, he ends up finding and we haven't even mentioned again the weird flashbacks in between stuff, but like they're kind of random. They're random. Like the one with the boy.
They sort of they get in the way of the actual sort of story sometimes, and then like I guess it just basically just shows you that maybe their home life isn't as peachy as you think, but then they've got the kind of like they've got their own sort of issues, I guess. With I don't know, was it I think there was one where they I guess they're pulling one of the kids out of school or whatever. Was that because he was getting
the kid like doesn't want to go to school that they want him to go to or something. He's having like this kind of teenage moment or whatever. Again, it's not a big like plot point. It's just trying to give a little bit of context. There's also that weird subplot where she's like, is she in like a mental institution or something because of the depression? And like she's like he's like visiting her at this like institute or something. Like she's lost her mind or something, or had a nervous breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was also that they're in like a field and they're like talking about divorce.
Yeah.
And this like sort of like because like we're the two two different the way we process grief or something. So yeah, I think but yeah. So I don't know. It's just this. I guess that they want to. Yeah, I don't know. It's a way to fit that stuff in, but yeah, despite and it would be cool, but like I don't know, it'd be cool if they could fit that in without doing the.
Well, I just thought, yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was like it would kill the momentum of the scene because I'd be like, oh, he's about to go in the house, like he's about to see her and like flashback, and like he starts to talk to her, in the house and like flashback, and I was just like, okay, can we I just want to watch the scene. If they had all this stuff previous to everybody dying, or at least the stuff with them in how they were grieving the kids, I could have rolled with that. And as far as their relationship and their dynamic, I think if you had this stuff in that first 20 or 30 minutes in the movie to like again establish the characters, so I'm a little more invested in them, Richie, before they die, like I would be a little more invested in this. I think it's kind of backwards the way it's laid out.
Yeah. It reminded me like that still like maybe this well if you haven't like seen it yet, but like it's so, like the new Liking movie, right? They'll have like you get the story. That's my first. You'll get the story, but then it'll just like randomly flash back because like Rafiki's telling the story. So you'll be getting the story, sort of getting into it, and then it'll just flash back to Timon and Pumbaa because they got nothing to do with this film, and then Timon and Pumbaa will listen to the story, and they'll just come that they'll just flash back to them going, why aren't we in this more? And it's like I don't care. I want to get to the story, and then it just derails everything.
If they had these scenes earlier, because I wouldn't have minded a movie, Richie, where if the premise of the movie was essentially the kids die early, but so we can see how a couple that's in love processes grief, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, and see how each of them process grief differently, how one's kind of the anchor, one kind of loses it. And we'd had like a good 20 minutes of them and a little bit more of their relationship dynamic, maybe reflecting on what they had versus what they lost, and what they have now and their dynamic now. Like I could get into that. And then when he dies, I could then be with her and see how she processes the grief and then get into the afterlife stuff in the second half. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm fine with that. But like, I just have no investment up until then. And just these awkward flashbacks, it's kind of too little too late for me personally, but I don't know if you agree.
No, same here. I would rather that they establish that beforehand and not like just just randomly cut in the actual story when you're building momentum. I think that's just a pacing issue.
Because I mean, once they start to go on the journey, like I think it's a pretty cool journey. Like if it doesn't get into too many of the details of like what's going on, but there's at least cool visuals. Like we're getting some momentum. Like Max von Sydow's taking on this journey. It's pretty cool. Like for what it is. Like I'll get the positives where they are. I like all that stuff. But yeah, and he finally gets to her. She's in this like broken down version of her house. She kind of doesn't know. Although what does she know and doesn't know? Because she knows that she like had a husband and this is like her house, but she's like confused. But like she knows certain things, but like doesn't know certain things. I never know like what exactly she knows and doesn't know. It's kind of vague as well in her dialogue.
Full on like dementia, or is it like a sort of like kind of early like is it like
Amnesia?
Amnesia or
Like she has flashes of things because she's like, this is definitely my house. I just don't have any electricity or something. And she's like, yeah, I had a husband. I might have had a kid at some point or something. Yeah, she's kind of, so he's trying to sort of just ease her into it. He's kind of talking to her a little bit, and then he's talking about, his experience with her, but as if, I know a guy who had this happen or whatever. So he's trying to like break her down, and eventually she has some kind of, flash memory where she remembers him, but at that point he like has his cutoff thing where he gets like lost, so like she snaps out of it, but then like he's got the blank look on his face and she's trying to like pull him out. But again, we don't get much of what he's going through other than we get this other shot of him like underwater kind of drowning for a second, but then poof, we're like back in heaven, and it's like, wait, what what happened there?
They're back in heaven. They're all it's like we sort of haven't touched on it, but yeah, like there's one of the one hallmark that's in a lot of Robin Williams movies, especially around this time, that is still present in this movie. It's very, especially the first half. It kind of wants it to be. It wants to have it be dark, but it also wants to have like these whimsical music. So you have all these, and all these, every scene. In every Robin Williams movie, there's always going to be a scene of this like happy, whimsical moment. So there's always this whimsical moment where like, they reunite and there's a field, and then they're like happy laughter, and like this very whimsical narrative, and then like at the start of the film too, it's like this is like I think I said to you in the chat, I'm like I don't mind sort of whimsy, but this is like a kind of really, considering I know where this goes, like this is kind of. It goes for a weird tonal shift after. Like it's just like it's very whimsical considering like what the character's already been through. But it's like it's like hey, like the upbeat sort of music. I'm like it kind of just beats you over the head for a bit. And that's So we had this whole like sort of very trying emotionally manipulative sort of moment that they try to do all the time. I guess it's kind of sort of like. Nice and not ever, but then it's like, but is it around this time where, we get into the end of the film, right? So that's
this is good because they reunite in heaven. They're at the little house. The kids finally show up. Finally.
But we didn't get into the fact that Cuba Gooding Jr. revealed that he is one of the kids. He was Ian.
And the Star Trek chick, the Asian one, was like the daughter. I was like, what?
Was the daughter? So he revealed right at the end that he is. So you're speaking in code the whole time. You could have just said that, like
or why? Why the need to turn into somebody else? Like why can't he get there? And he sees his kids, and his kids introduce them, are his guides to heaven or whatever. So he can be happy with the kids, but then still have the same crisis of like, I don't know if I can do this without your mom, right? Like, I don't know if I could. Like, I love you guys, but like, I don't know. I love your mom like so much. I love Annie so much. Like, I just can't do this without her. And then you would have an interesting dynamic where you could continue to develop the dynamic between the kids, which we really didn't get in this movie. So you could kind of flesh that out a little bit more and play that out, but also have them be involved in like decision making and have a little bit of tension there about like, no, but Dad, we don't want to lose you. Like there would be some dramatic tension there, Richie. Like that would be interesting,
Didn't she like turn into like the girl turned into an Asian woman because they met like some Asian woman like earlier on, like before there was some Asian woman,
like briefly, like one scene, but it's like a blinking visit.
Like I wish, wish I had like because she's very sort of nurturing and she like, but in a way that I know that what they're going for is like, hey, that's kind of cool that you were, the daughter, but it kind of comes across as creepy, like
it's odd. Yeah, and I don't know why you couldn't just do it straight up, and then you would have a little more, again, dramatic tension of like, you would have a quandary there. You would have him having to make a decision of like risking, leaving his children forever to gamble on bringing his wife back. Like, that's a cool conundrum, right? That's some dramatic stakes, Richie. That would be interesting, and to give you some stakes for the journey, if he would, forever regret, not being able to see his kids again because he went after his wife, that would be interesting. I would like that.
And then next one I see there was a dude named Albert, like that he met, like was like a father figure back in the, it was like back in the day, a psychiatrist. I'm like, okay. And I think
I didn't need that. I think he could have just been like a tracker. He could have just been this guy.
I think he attempted to explain why they're like they look different or whatever. I'm like, it's like, I know it's a but I'm like,
why so much mystery in heaven? Why can't things just be straightforward? I just don't understand this.
Be who you are. It's just very confusing. What if you're meeting people in heaven? Oh, hey, I'm Austin. Are you Austin, or are you this person? I don't know.
Or are you this other person I met 30 years ago at a concert? Like what? I would think I would just want to meet people straight up. Also, by the way, if you die as a baby these days, I don't know. Whatever. They never explain that.
So after that, they just randomly, I guess, they decide that they accept the idea of like reincarnation, and they just
reincarnation is a part of heaven that you can like opt into, or like something, like you can choose to go back, or either choose or stay at any time to like go back to Earth. And
then once they do, and then the next thing you see, the last one thing you see is that their kids on like the and they're like basically around sort of similar setting to where we open the film, and that they're on like, not in Switzerland, but they're on like a dock. And
they've got like toy boats instead of real boats.
And they're like sharing each other's like, they have a cute moment. They're sharing each other's sandwiches, and it's like, oh, okay, and it's supposed to be this love story, but it's like, okay, like one, and that just raises questions. Like, okay, but like, have you effectively just sort of eliminated your kids from existence in that way, or like
well, they drop a line where they do say briefly that your kids will still be here, and up here a lifetime on Earth is like a heartbeat here. So I guess it's assuming that like the kids will see them back again sooner rather than later, at least in the heaven timeline, but like they're going to go down and like live a whole life. But
if they have kids, would it be that like it might be different kids to what it could be?
They go back up to heaven with a different set of kids, and they have to introduce to the other kids from the other timeline?
They may have two sons or like two daughters. Or maybe they'll have three sons. And it's like also you're banking on the fact that you're kids. You're going to have this. Like this long-lasting like relationship that's going to last until you get married, but kids fall out from the flimsiest things.
Well, that and I had a lot of friends as a kid, like as a young or elementary school or something, that like they like moved away and like I never heard from them again. Like they were like my best friends. Like maybe you find them on Facebook 30 years later and you throw a message, but like it's very rare that you like grow up with somebody and are friends for life. That's very rare. Yeah. And also I wonder, like, do they know each other because of like previous knowledge? Like, how much do you retain? Do you not retain anything? Do they try to make it to where you do meet? Like, how much of this is prearranged? It brings up a lot more questions than I think it answers. In this premise.
Just like right, like what if like they cool, you had a cute moment on the boat, but what if you're starting off life, differently, what if you meet someone else?
So here's an interesting premise that I did read when I was reading about the guy, Richard Matheson, who wrote the book and some of the changes of the book, where his ending was, or I don't know if they filmed this or not, but this alternate ending where there was a rule to this where you could do this if you wanted to do this reincarnation thing and like relive your life with each other, that's fine. But because she killed herself, there's sort of a caveat to that. There's like an asterisk where they will re-fall in love and live their life again, but she will like die at some point at like 40 or whatever, and he has to live the rest of his life without her and be like a grieving widow. And that's like the caveat. So they can go through and have their relationship again, but she will depart early and they can't like live to be old. They drop a line about growing old with each other or something. They can't grow old with each other though.
That'd be weird if they actually did, like, that they stuck more to the book. That would mean that we probably get What Dreams May Come To. Which is
yeah.
It's a weird thought that we would get a sequel to this movie.
Yeah, so I but at least that's at least a little more interesting that like there's a a caveat to like if you want to do this, redo this thing again, like there's a price to pay, or something. So it's at least interesting. Like I thought that would have been a little more fascinating, but I think they might have actually filmed that, but like the test audiences didn't want that. So but yeah, I don't know. It's still just a very strange ending of like, hey, we're all finally reunited. All right, kids, bye. And we're gonna go back to Earth. Like that's still just a little odd to me. That it's like you have what you want, Rob. You got your wife back, right? And it's like you got her back. You can live eternally with her, but no, let's go back and start over again. That to me is like strange to me. Like I don't know how that logically makes a lot of sense when you can just live out whatever life you want here. And I think, didn't they even say you can you obviously can change your appearance in heaven, right? So you can like revert back to your younger selves and like play out your relationship if you want to in heaven, right? And create your surroundings. So like, why bother with this reincarnation thing? I don't really understand it.
We had I remember having some in regards to like audiences and stuff. We're having some conversation in the group, but I can't remember what it was about. But it was like, just because sometimes. They can be a good, it can be good to vet things through and test audience, but like sometimes at the end of the day, like decisions yours, and sometimes it's not always the best indicator. Test audiences, it's not. They don't really reflect the general public. They're just certain group of people. Like I remember like that movie Australia, right, where apparently Hugh Jackman's character was supposed to perish, which would the movie was still would have been great, but that actually would have made sense to the movie. And then like these old ladies were like, no, that's too sad. It's like, well, get over it. So fucking movies are sad sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and there's even goofy stuff like, this is a completely different tonal example, but in Jaws: The Revenge, Mario Van Peebles like clearly gets eaten and chomped by the shark and is completely dead. I mean, there's blood everywhere. Like he's dead. And then like he just pops up out of the water later because test audiences didn't like that he liked him and didn't like that he died. Even though it's a shark movie where people are gonna die, like just because we like him, have him pop up and say Mon again, just like weird. So it's like people can die in movies, like especially a horror film. Like it's just I don't know. It's odd. But yeah, anyways. Let's start to wrap it up here and get kind of our final thoughts. I'll let you go first, man. Then I'll go. But yeah, you're kind of overall. Again, I'm sorry to be so negative on this, especially Steven, if you see this. I know it's one of your favorites. I get it, but like it just didn't work for me. I'm sorry. It's just it just. But you go ahead. You go first.
Yeah. Upon a second of your opinion, like I get, I do get why some, like I do get sort of swept away a bit by the visuals. I think, on a visual standpoint, as an achievement itself, I do like kind of the some of the world building that they set up. I just think they kind of got entangled with their own sort of rules, especially with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s dialogue. But yeah, I liked what you like with the Max von Sydow's part of it. I think he did a good job. I think Ron Williams, the performance was good, and he did it. He did the best with what he was given. Especially at most casts, Cuba Gooding Jr. was a bit too over the top, and
I think he's actively kind of bad in this movie, actually. Like I don't like his delivery. Yeah, when they sit down and he does the thing where he's like, when can I see my kids? And Cuba Gooding is just like, never. Never.
Yeah.
It's just like, what? Like, he was very like kind of, he had these like
Like
wacky
an evil
faces, and
villain.
like I don't know what he's going for. Yeah, totally. I thought his delivery was off. Yeah, I don't know.
And there was also parts where when he delivered stuff, it just felt like he was almost scared going into Eddie Redmayne Douglas Syndrome territory. He's like, yes, yes. I'm like why are you whispering? It's, I don't know. This is like, it was very weird. But yeah, I don't know. But I guess I was like, well, it's a '90s Cuba Gooding Jr.'s P. Let's put it in a thing. But yeah, I do get also Spike Lee's criticism of that too. With the magic hero. But yeah, I know that the set pieces and the visuals are great, but yeah, the actual execution not really good. And it doesn't surprise me this movie kind of didn't do well because I don't know. Again, it's really, even when you watch the trailer, I don't know how you market this film. It's not really, not a comedy. It's not really, it's I don't know who you
Well,
take.
and here's the thing, it got very mixed reviews. Like Roger Ebert really liked it, gave it like 3.5 stars. He enjoyed it. I think he was swept away by the visuals. But like on the opposite, another guy you would know, like Leonard Maltin, gave it a bomb in his book and said it was off-putting gobbledygook. So like it was just, even the top critics were like split as to like who took the ride and who didn't on this movie.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's just the. And people aren't ready for like that different overall moves at this point too. So it doesn't surprise me at all. So and it wasn't as good, again, I probably had the same experience where it's not as good as what I remembered. So I wasn't a huge fan, but it's not like it's like there was some redeeming stuff in here, but not enough to make it a good movie, I would say.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I know we kind of vibe on stuff, but yeah, I know when I texted you, I was like, yeah, I got some thoughts on this movie. I think you kind of picked up what I was throwing down, just like that. But yeah, again, I hadn't seen this in a long time, so I was interested to rewatch it, and I'm glad I did. But yeah, it's not as good as I remember it being. I found a lot of flaws in sort of the screenplay and how things are kind of laid out, and like the rules of the movie, even within the movie. And like I said, I think if you reshuffled some of this stuff, just re-edited the movie and put a lot of those flashback things and reworked it into the first like 30-40 minutes of the movie and gave us a little bit more meat as to like why I should care about this relationship and like the character dynamics and whatnot, I could get a little bit more on board with like the stakes of the later stuff, after he's dead. I think I don't think my suggestion of having the kids actually be the kids when he gets there and having the moral conundrum of like leaving your children and having to go risk, take this risk to get your wife in help, that would be a conundrum and some dramatic tension that I think would actually elevate the stakes of the movie and like give you something to chew on and give Robin Williams something to chew on, before he actually makes this decision, and like it would give the audience, just kind of up that those stakes a little bit. So I think if you reshuffle some of that stuff, I think it would work a little bit more. I think it would flow better as well, because then, once he gets there, you ratchet it up when he meets Vasco and Saito. You could take this continuous journey and be kind of invested in this journey just straight up without having to keep cutting, back to other things and get really into that and kind of build up to the finale. I think there's a way you could smooth this out. I'm not saying I would still like love the movie, but like I think it would be a better experience overall had it been kind of restructured a little bit. So that's more my thing. I agree with you about that. I think the visuals are pretty good for the most part. I love the set designs and the production design. Like I'm always appreciative of practical stuff, when they do that. So the money's on screen and I appreciate that. And I think there's a few good performances in here, but so it's nowhere near like the worst thing I've ever seen or anything like that. Like I'm not going to like trash the movie for being like horrible. It's just, I had a lot more quibbles than I thought I did with this movie, and it just didn't work overall. So yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about here, so that's why.
No, yeah. Again, it doesn't have to be one of my favorite movies for us to talk about it on here. You know what I mean? Like, as long as there's something to talk about, there's definitely things to talk about in this movie. So, and I'm glad we had a discussion and kind of got it out there. And I was glad I at least rewatched it because it's been a minute. But yeah, we'll kind of wrap it up there, and we'll figure out probably next week what we're gonna do. One of the tournaments and whatnot, we'll spin the wheel and see what our next film will be here on Wheel Movies. But Richie, you got anything you want to throw out there, plug before we get out of here?
Well, when about probably about just under 15 minutes. We got Lonely Marks, which we will be recapping World's End, and what are you talking about? We're talking about the Dynamite you were at in Nashville.
I was there, yeah. The first Max Dynamite, which boy was that was a show.
And doing our fantasy draft, which will be fun. So which will obviously carry on through the rest of the year. So that should be fun times. So that should be quite an important draft. So so we're gearing up for also Raw and Netflix and all that sort of deal. So it should be a fun time. And other than that, just other trivia, tournament fights, tier ranker, all that jazz. I think I've got Lights Out. I think coming up soon. That's got a schedule. And that will be on the schedule soon. CW Comic Wrestling Trivia. I think next week as well. So keep an eye out for that, and JPS Trivia Leagues, and I'm around.
All right. Yeah, no. And make sure you follow the Movie Hero Network Facebook group. We plug a lot of that stuff in there. And again, we'll kind of let you know what our next movie is around that time. Just, like and subscribe if you haven't already. We would greatly appreciate it, whether you check this out, join us live, or check it out later. Thank you very much. We do this every 2 weeks. So we discuss the movie again. I actually would have liked to, I would have liked to have Steven Shepard on to get like a more positive opinion of the movie, because I want to try to do that. It's kind of the goal of the show is we showcase different people's sort of favorite movies here in the community, and I want their opinion, to balance out mine, because I'm one of those people, Richie, I know you're like if somebody likes something I don't like, or vice versa, it's like, okay, let's flesh it out, tell me why, not just worst movie ever, best movie ever, things like that. Like, tell me why, what you like, what you didn't like, flesh it out. I don't mind those discussions, so I'm always appreciative of that. But it kind of is what it is. Maybe we'll get him on time. I did reach out to him, he just wasn't available tonight. So
sometimes schedules don't mean that don't line up, and you got to roll with what you got. So it's all good.
Yeah, no, it is what it is. But yeah, we'll reconvene in about 2 weeks for another episode. We'll have a lot of podcasts. So Podcast League now will be making a big return in January, as it always does. We'll have 3 different podcasts throughout the month, starting kind of on the 13th. Richie will be joining me definitely for the worst of 2024. Me and you, JPO, Wolfman, will lay out our worst. That's always a lot of fun, because Jordan wants nothing to do with that. He doesn't want to watch bad movies. I watch bad movies. I don't care. I love bad movies. And I like talking about bad movies. We'll kick things off with there. We'll kind of work our way up. So we're going to start with the worst. We're going to do a show about sort of honorable mentions outside of the top 12, movies we just want to highlight and recommend. And then we will build up to our best of 2024 roundtable as well, which Richie will be on there for all those shows as well. So, so we got a lot going on this month. So make sure you stay tuned and join us. We would appreciate that. So hit that notification bell. But we'll wrap it up for now. And join us on the Lonely Marks over on the Lonely Marks Wrestling Podcast channel. I will link that in the Movie Hero Network group, so make sure you join us over there, man. That'll do it for tonight, man. So for Richie, I am Austin Pez Howell, and we'll see you next time on The Wheel of Movies.